In 1943, this machine weighed 350 tons. It contained 27,000 individual parts, 12,000 rivets held it together, and every single piece was assembled by human hands. This is how they built steam locomotives. Welcome inside the 1940s train factory. These factories stretched across hundreds of acres. Baldwin Locomotive Works employed over 15,000 workers. They worked 3 shifts around the clock. Raw steel entered at one end of the factory. A completed locomotive rolled out the other end. The entire process took 8 weeks. Every component was manufactured on site. Let us follow the complete journey. This is the story of steam locomotive construction. The journey begins in the steel yard. Railroad gondola cars delivered raw steel directly to the factory. Bethlehem Steel supplied the boiler plates. Each plate weighed several hundred pounds. Workers unloaded steel using overhead cranes and chain hooks. No forklifts existed in these factories. Everything moved by crane, cart, or human muscle. Steel plates were inspected upon arrival. Inspectors checked thickness and surface quality. Defective plates were immediately rejected. The steel yard organized materials by locomotive order number.
Did you verify the count on the angle iron, Bill?
Yes, sir. Matches the tag.
Every piece was tracked from arrival to final assembly. Copper arrived for Firebox components. Brass was delivered for valves and fittings. Bronze supplied material for bearing surfaces. Each metal served a specific purpose. From the steel yard, materials moved to the foundry. The foundry was the hottest place in the factory. Here, solid metal became liquid, and liquid metal became locomotive parts. The transformation began with fire. Cupola furnaces towered 30 feet high. Workers charged them with alternating layers. First came a layer of coke fuel, then a layer of pig iron, then scrap iron from old locomotives, finally limestone as a flux. Air blasted through openings near the bottom. Temperatures reached 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. The metals slowly melted and collected at the bottom. Foundry workers wore heavy leather aprons. Simple wireframe goggles protected their eyes. The heat was almost unbearable. When ready, workers tapped the furnace. Molten iron flowed like bright orange water. It poured into large safety ladles. Overhead, cranes carried these ladles across the foundry. The molten metal glowed white hot. Sparks showered across the foundry floor. Workers moved quickly but carefully. One mistake could mean severe burns, and the ladles traveled to the molding area. Here, the liquid metal would take shape. Sand molds waited in long rows. Each mold was crafted for a specific part. The pouring process required perfect timing. Sand casting began with wooden patterns. Pattern makers carved these from seasoned hardwood. Each pattern was slightly oversized. This accounted for metal shrinkage during cooling. Molders packed special sand around the patterns. The sand contained silica, clay, and water. Workers rammed the sand tight by hand. Wooden ramming tools compacted every inch. The pattern was carefully removed. This left a perfect negative impression. Cores created hollow sections inside castings. Core makers mixed sand with clay andite. Cores were baked in large ovens until hard. Workers placed dried cores precisely in the molds. Mold halves were aligned using metal pins. Gates and risers directed metal flow. Vents allowed gases to escape during pouring. The mold was now ready for molten metal. Crane operators positioned the ladle above. Molten iron poured into the mold cavity. The metal temperature exceeded 1,300 degrees. Flames and smoke rose from the vents. Workers watched carefully for overflow. Large castings required multiple ladles. Cylinder blocks took a full day to cool. After cooling, workers broke apart the sand molds. The rough casting emerged covered in sand. Fettling crews trimmed excess metal with chipping hammers. Castings were inspected for cracks and voids. Approved parts moved to the machine shop. The forge shop shaped solid steel through heat and force. Massive steam hammers dominated the building. These hammers weighed several tons. They struck with tremendous force. Blacksmiths heated steel blooms in coal-fired forges. The metal glowed bright orange when ready. Workers gripped the hot steel with long tongs. They positioned it beneath the steam hammer. The hammer fell with thundering impact. Each blow shaped the metal further. Axles required dozens of hammer blows. Connecting rods took shape under repeated strikes. The forge shop floor trembled constantly. Steam and smoke filled the air. Workers wore leather aprons against flying sparks. Sweat evaporated instantly near the forges. Skilled blacksmiths judged temperature by color. Cherry red meant ready for working. White hot was too soft for shaping. The forged parts moved next to the machine shop. The machine shop transformed rough parts into precision components. Massive lathes lined the shop floor. Each lathe weighed over 80 tons. Machinists wore cotton work clothes and flat caps. They operated machines using hand wheels and levers. Cutting oil splashed across the workpieces. High-speed steel cutting tools shaped the metal. Axles spun on double-ended lathes. Both ends were machined simultaneously. Wheel centers were bored on vertical boring mills. The boring bar descended slowly through the casting. Metal chips curled away from the cutting edge. Precision was measured in thousandths of an inch. Machinists used micrometers constantly. Large calipers measured cylinder bores. Dial indicators checked surface runout. Piston rods were ground to mirror finish. Tolerances of 5/10,000ths were standard. Connecting rod ends were bored for bearings. Radial drilling machines bored multiple holes. Planing machines flattened axle box surfaces. Groups of 6 parts were machined together. Slotting machines cut profiles in frame plates. Every machine ran on individual electric motors. The old belt drive systems were gone. Finished parts were hand-fitted by skilled workers. They used engineer's blue to check contact. High spots were scraped away by hand. This process took hours of patient work. Perfect fit ensured smooth operation. The boiler shop was the loudest place on earth. Here, flat steel plates became pressure vessels. Plates arrived sheared to rough size. They first passed through the mangle machine. Hardened rollers removed waviness from the steel. Multiple passes were required for perfect flatness. Barrel plates were bent into cylindrical shapes. 3-roll bending machines curved the steel. Workers carefully checked the curve radius. Firebox plates required different treatment. Hydraulic flanging presses shaped these components. The plates were heated before pressing. Massive dies bent the metal in one operation. Gang drilling machines bored rivet holes. 20 holes were drilled simultaneously. Radial drills handled thicker plate stacks. 5 or 6 plates were drilled together. This ensured perfect hole alignment. When the holes would receive 12,000 rivets. Each rivet would be driven by hand or machine. The riveting process defined the boiler shop. It was deafening, dangerous, and essential. No steam locomotive could exist without rivets. The boiler's strength came from these connections. Let us watch the riveting gangs at work. Riveting required a specialized 4-man gang. The heater operated a portable coke forge. He heated rivets until they glowed cherry red. The forge sat on wheels for mobility. Bellows pumped air to intensify the heat. When ready, the heater tossed the glowing rivet. The catcher caught it with long-handled tongs. He quickly inserted it into the pre-drilled hole. On the inside, the holder-up pressed a bucking bar. This heavy steel bar supported the rivet head. The riveter operated the pneumatic rivet gun. The gun hammered the protruding end into a head. Each rivet required about 250 blows. The noise was absolutely deafening. Workers suffered permanent hearing damage. Hearing protection did not exist. A skilled gang drove 12 rivets per hour. Bull riveters were massive hydraulic machines. And these floor-mounted machines drove rivets faster. 5 rivets per minute was possible, but many locations required handwork. Inside the boiler barrel, conditions were cramped. Workers crawled through narrow spaces. Heat from recent rivets made the metal warm. The air was thick with smoke and fumes. After riveting, every seam was caulked. Pneumatic chipping hammers burred the edges. This created a steam-tight seal. The boiler would contain 250 pounds pressure. Any leak could be catastrophic. The firebox was the locomotive's furnace. It consisted of inner and outer shells. Water filled the space between them. Hundreds of stay bolts connected the two shells. Workers drilled and tapped holes for each stay bolt. Threaded rods were inserted through both plates. Pneumatic hammers headed both ends. Each stay bolt had a telltale hole drilled through. This small hole revealed broken bolts during testing. Flexible stay bolts allowed for thermal expansion. The crown sheet required special reinforcement. Radial stays reached up to the outer wrapper. Fusible plugs provided last resort safety. Tube installation was equally painstaking. Over 200 tubes filled the boiler. Workers slid each tube into position. Tube expanders pressed them tight against the sheets. Pneumatic hammers beaded the tube ends. Firebox tubes were additionally seal-welded. The boiler was now ready for testing. Every boiler faced a hydrostatic pressure test. Safety valves were locked closed. The boiler was filled completely with water. Hydraulic pumps pressurized it to over 300 pounds. This exceeded working pressure by 25%. Inspectors examined every rivet and seam. Any leak meant rejection and rework. Stay bolts were hammer-tested individually. A healthy bolt rang with a clear sound. A broken bolt thudded dully. Government inspectors verified all results. Only approved boilers proceeded to insulation. The tested boiler moved to the erecting shop. Driving wheels gave the locomotive its power. Cast steel wheel centers arrived from the foundry. Vertical boring mills machined the center bore. Separate steel tires provided the running surface. Tires were forged as seamless rings. They were bored slightly smaller than the wheel. This created an interference fit. Workers heated the tire in a ring of propane flame. Thermal expansion opened the bore. The wheel center was lowered into the hot tire. As the tire cooled, it gripped with enormous force. No bolts or fasteners were needed. The friction fit was permanent. Wheels were pressed onto axles hydraulically. Crank pins were positioned exactly 90 degrees apart. This quartering was critical for smooth operation. Completed wheel sets were rolled to the erecting shop. They waited on tracks beneath the assembly area. The erecting shop was the cathedral of locomotive building. Overhead, cranes could lift 120 tons. Multiple locomotives stood in various stages of completion. The cast steel frame was positioned on jacks. Workers leveled it using spirit levels and straight edges. Spring hangers and equalizing levers were installed. Driving boxes with babbitt bearings were fitted. The wheel sets waited on tracks below. The overhead crane lifted the massive frame. It was lowered carefully onto the waiting wheels. Driving rods and side rods were attached. Skilled fitters aligned every connection precisely. The boiler arrived on a flat car. The crane lifted it high above the frame. Workers guided it into position. It was bolted to the smokebox saddle at the front. Expansion brackets at the rear allowed for growth. The blast pipe was aligned using a plumb line. Valve gear components were installed piece by piece. Steam pipes and water lines were connected. Air brake piping ran along the boiler. The cab was lifted and bolted into place. Throttle, brake valves and gauges were installed. The tender was coupled to the locomotive. Final adjustments were made throughout. The locomotive was painted in railroad colors. Painters applied multiple coats by brush. Gold leaf lettering identified the number. Steam was raised for the first time. Workers watched every gauge and fitting. Safety valves were tested and adjusted. Air brakes were charged and verified. The locomotive rolled forward under its own power. It moved slowly along the factory test track. Government inspectors signed the final paperwork. The locomotive was ready for delivery. It steamed out of the factory gates to meet its railroad.